Inside that dying craft, Latara fought the failing controls with hands slick from luminous blood. The panel flickered between alien glyphs and static human symbols, her translator stuttering between two languages that no longer trusted each other. Containment, failure, the ship croaked in fractured English. She slammed her palm against the console. Divert power, hold altitude. But the system was already gone. The hull split open, light spilling out like a wound in the night. Gravity seized her and the desert rose up with teeth of glass and flame. Impact. Silence followed, deep and merciless. Sand hissed against twisted metal. The air trembled with heat and radiation, bending light until it shimmered like water. From the smoking wreckage, Latara dragged herself free, every breath scraping against a broken rib. Her once silver armor hung in tatters, the bioluminescent lines across her skin pulsing weakly, as if her heartbeat had forgotten the rhythm of life. She stumbled, feet sinking into powder-soft dust that smelled of iron and ash. The oxygen here was poison. It clawed at her lungs, made her veins burn with fire. Behind her, the first hunter drones descended, sleek, insect-like machines with eyes that glowed the color of judgment. Their rotors carved the air, cutting through the night with the precision of an executioner's blade. The Earth defense insignia still shone on their armor, bright and proud, as if cruelty had become a badge of honor. Latara ran. Each step threw up a cloud of ash that caught the moonlight like sparks. Her breath tore through her chest. Every heartbeat felt borrowed. The translators in her ear coughed out fragments of human orders. Target acquired, capture alive, asset priority level 1. They called her an asset. They always had. A pulse bolt seared past her shoulder, vaporizing a line of sand beside her. She dove behind a chunk of melted steel, the heat burning her palms. Another shot ripped the ground open where she'd stood seconds before. Her fingers found the shard of a carbon blade buried in the dirt. It was old, human-made, dulled by years of wind, but it was something. When the next drone hovered low to scan, she leapt from cover, driving the blade into the exposed optics. Sparks burst, metal screamed, and the machine crashed sideways in a storm of dust. The recoil threw her backward, pain flaring through her side. She landed hard, vision spinning. The remaining drones adjusted, forming a semicircle. Red lights blinked in unison. Countdown to termination. She tried to rise, but her knees folded. Her voice cracked through the helmet's broken comm. Please, stop. The machines did not understand mercy. Then, a sound not made by drones. A deeper hum, heavier, older, tires against gravel. A human vehicle rolled out from behind a rusted communications tower, an armored scavenger rig with faded military markings. The gun mounted on its roof turned smoothly toward the drones. A single plasma shot burst through the night. One drone exploded mid-air, another spiraled down in pieces. The vehicle slid sideways, kicking up a wall of dust, and stopped. From its open hatch stepped a man, Jet, tall, weathered, wearing a jacket patched with sand scars and oil stains. His rifle was older than the war itself, but it fired true. He tracked the last drone, fired twice, and it fell burning into the dirt. Silence returned, broken only by the wind dragging ash across the wreckage. Latara collapsed again, half buried in the sand. The faint glow beneath her skin fading. Jet approached cautiously, rifle lowered but ready. He had seen things crawl out of wrecks before. Pirates, raiders, synthetics, but never one that looked like her. Pale blue veins of light traced under her skin, her eyes shifting between violet and silver as if the stars themselves had been caught inside. He stopped 2 paces away. You move, I shoot, he said, voice steady, low. Her head turned weakly toward the sound. The translator implanted behind her ear sparked, caught a few words, and tried to imitate them. Her voice came out fractured, trembling like glass under strain. Be gentle, it hurts to breathe your air. The rifle lowered. For a second, the desert forgot its noise. Jet blinked, the soldier reflex fading behind something older, human curiosity. He holstered the weapon and crouched. The wound, Along her ribs leaked faint, shimmering light like starlight bleeding through flesh. "You're bleeding out," he muttered. She didn't answer, maybe didn't understand. He hesitated, then slid an arm beneath her shoulders. Her skin was cool, almost electric, tingling against his scarred hands. She winced, but didn't resist. "Easy now," he said. "You'll cook out here before they come back." The phrase "come back" struck her. Her eyes widened in sudden panic, scanning the sky where the drones had fallen. Jet followed her gaze. On the horizon, more red points were appearing. Reinforcements. "Damn it," he breathed. He lifted her fully, surprised by how light she was, like holding smoke wrapped in silk. She whispered something in her language, a word that might have meant trust or surrender. He didn't know. He carried her toward the rig, sand sliding under his boots. Plasma bolts rained from the distance, striking near enough to spray molten glass. He kicked open the hatch, hauled her inside, slammed the seals, and gunned the engine. The rig roared to life, old turbines screaming in defiance. Through the cracked windshield, he saw the drones gaining, dark specks against the burning horizon. He shifted gears, cutting across the dunes toward the canyons. Lightning forked across the clouds. Wind howled through shattered antennas that once spoke to stars. Inside the cabin, Latara clutched the edge of the seat, her breathing ragged. The purifier vents hissed as Jet adjusted the mix ratio, flooding the air with nitrogen to thin the oxygen. Her color steadied slightly. He risked a glance at her. "You're not from any unit I know." She tilted her head, eyelids heavy. "Unit?" she echoed, struggling with the sound. He grunted. "Figures." The rig jolted over a ridge, throwing sparks from the undercarriage. A warning alarm beeped, energy reserves critical. The canyon opened ahead, deep and shadowed, its walls carved by centuries of wind. Jet swung the vehicle into its mouth, engines echoing like thunder between the stone. Behind them, the drones hesitated at the entrance, scanners confused by magnetic interference. Jet drove deeper, until the signals vanished completely. Then he cut the engine. Silence rolled in like a wave. For a long moment, neither spoke. Only the slow tick of cooling metal filled the space. Jet wiped sweat from his forehead and looked at her again. She sat slumped against the wall, eyes half closed, skin still glowing faintly through the dust. "You'll suffocate if we stay here too long," he said quietly. Her gaze lifted, unfocused. "Better to suffocate than to burn." The words hit him harder than he expected. Something in her tone, resignation wrapped in melody, carried the weight of 1,000 unburied wars. He reached toward the medkit, bolted to the dashboard, tore open a sealant patch and pressed it against the wound on her side. She gasped, light flaring under his palm, but the bleeding slowed. "Be still," he muttered. "You'll live." Her eyes fluttered open, silver irises reflecting the faint cabin lights. "Live? Where?" He looked out through the windshield at the dead horizon. "For now, somewhere the sky can't find us." Outside, the storm began to fall, fine sand turning to sheets of metallic rain that hissed against the hull. The night swallowed the wreckage of her ship, covering every trace that she had ever fallen. Inside that buried canyon, 2 exiles sat in silence, a human haunted by a war he didn't believe in, and an alien girl whose very breath defied the planet. Between them lay the hum of an old engine, and a question neither dared to ask. What happens when mercy breaks the law of 2 worlds? The canyon swallowed the storm as if the earth itself wanted to hide them. Shattered rock walls stretched upward, like the ribs of an ancient creature, closing the sky to everything but memory. Jet parked the rig inside a hollow carved by time, engines sighing into silence. The air smelled of oil, static, and faint ozone from the plasma vents. Lightning still danced beyond the canyon rim, painting shadows that refused to stay still. He sat motionless for a moment, hands gripping the steering wheel. Adrenaline still buzzed behind his ribs, that edge of survival that never fully faded since the wars. He had seen hundreds die for less than what he had just done. Harboring, an off-worlder, firing on drones, defying the defense network. The price of pity was exile. Yet when he turned his head toward her, something wordless kept him from regret. Latara slumped against the bulkhead, faint blue light pulsing through the cracks of her armor. The sealant patch still glowed where he'd placed it, but the burn around it had spread, veins flickering with unstable energy. Her eyes were closed, breath shallow and uneven. Her species' physiology was alien to every med chart he'd ever studied, but the rhythm of pain was universal. He stood, opened a storage locker, and pulled out a thermal blanket. The edges were frayed, stained with old oil, but it was warm. As he knelt to drape it over her, she stirred, instinctively shrinking away. Reflex. Pure fear. Easy, he said softly. No one's coming. Her translator crackled, catching only fragments. Coming? She whispered. More hunters? Not yet. He hesitated, then added, Not if I keep them guessing. Her gaze flickered open, silver pupils narrowing to slits under the dim light. You risk much, she murmured. He shrugged, leaning back on his heels. You fell from orbit right into my backyard. It'd feel wrong to leave you bleeding in it. She didn't respond, but her shoulders eased slightly. The silence stretched, heavy, uncertain, not yet safe, but no longer hostile. Outside, the wind whistled through cracks in the rock, carrying grains of dust that glowed faintly when they touched her skin. It was as if the desert was trying to understand her too. Jet moved toward the rear hatch, pulling down a steel ladder that led deeper underground. There's shelter below, he said. Place I used to hide during raids. You'll breathe easier there. She blinked slowly. Breathe easier? Less oxygen, he explained. More nitrogen. Your lungs won't burn. For the first time, a shadow of relief crossed her face, fragile like sunlight after long rain. He helped her to her feet. She was lighter than she looked, her movements delicate, every step cautious as if the ground might reject her. The faint glow under her skin illuminated the ladder as they descended into the dark. The bunker below was carved from bedrock, a mixture of old mining tunnels and Jet's handiwork. The ceiling was low, lined with cables and flickering bulbs powered by solar cells scavenged from the wasteland. A narrow table stood in the center, surrounded by mismatched chairs. Tools, old maps, and water canisters cluttered the corners. It wasn't home, not in the warm sense, but it was his, private, forgotten, quiet. Latara looked around, eyes darting over the walls covered with faded photographs of humans in uniforms, smiling faces, a woman holding a child, ghosts of a time that didn't exist anymore. Her lips parted, voice hushed. This place remembers things. Yeah, he said, flicking on another light. Most of them don't matter now. He guided her toward the small med station, a jury-rigged bench with bandages, chemical packs, and a cracked mirror. Sit. Let me look at that wound before you pass out again. She hesitated, then obeyed. When he removed the broken armor plates, she winced but didn't pull away. The wound beneath glimmered faintly, not blood but light shimmering through translucent tissue. It looked painful, beautiful, and completely foreign. Jet cleaned the edges with a sterilized cloth, his hands steady from years of field medicine. The scent that rose wasn't metallic like human blood but faintly sweet, like static rain on fresh stone. You heal different, he muttered, her head tilted. Different. Not wrong? He paused, realizing what she meant. No, he said. Not wrong. Just not like us. Her eyes softened, the tension in her frame easing. He wrapped a band of nanofiber around her torso, sealing the wound completely. When he finished, he stepped back and wiped his hands. That should hold until you rest. Why? She asked suddenly. He frowned. Why what? Why save me? Her voice was quiet, fragile, but the question burned through the air like a flare. You're kind. Hunt's mine. You could trade me, gain reward, clear your name. Jet's jaw tightened. I've done enough trading for one lifetime. Then, what? I saw someone dying. Didn't need a reason past that. Her gaze searched his, trying to read a truth she didn't yet believe in. You fought in the war, she said slowly, almost accusing. Your eyes carry the noise of it. He looked away, the muscles in his jaw tightening. I did. And I stopped when I realized noise was all it ever was. They sat in silence, broken only by the faint hum of the air filters. Latara's voice softened. On Virelon, we were told humans cannot feel mercy. That compassion died with your stars. He met her eyes again, faint amusement tugging at the corner of his mouth. Guess your teachers never met the right ones. For the first time she smiled, a small, fleeting curve of lips that looked more like exhaustion than joy. But it was real. Minutes stretched into hours. Jet moved to the corner stove, lit a low flame, and poured ration water into a tin kettle. The scent of synthetic coffee filled the air. Latara watched every motion, her head tilted slightly as though studying an unfamiliar ritual. What is that? She asked. Something humans drink when they're too tired to keep going. Does it heal? He chuckled softly. No, just keeps the ghosts away for a while. When the drink was ready, he handed her a small canteen of purified water instead. Yours. Mine would kill you. She accepted it, hands trembling as if she'd forgotten how to hold something that wasn't a weapon. The metal was warm from his touch. She took a careful sip, closing her eyes. Tastes alive, she whispered. He sat across from her, elbows resting on his knees. The silence now felt different, less guarded, more curious. The space between them no longer dangerous, just unfamiliar. After a long pause, she said quietly, You should not have fired on their drones. They will mark you a traitor, he shrugged. Already was one. This just makes it official. Her gaze softened. You are reckless, maybe, he said. But it's been a long time since reckless felt this right. A faint vibration tremored through the ground. Distant thunder or engines, neither comforting. Jet stood, scanning the comm feed. Static, no coordinates, no transmissions. For now they were invisible. He turned back to her. You should sleep. That wound will heal faster if you let your body shut down. She hesitated. Sleep here? Only place you won't burn. Her expression shifted between trust and doubt, then finally surrendered. She stretched across the cot, curling slightly, her glow dimming as rest overtook her. Jet stood at the doorway, watching her chest rise and fall in steady rhythm. There was something unreal about her, too graceful for this broken world, too fragile for its cruelty. Yet she had fought drones with nothing but a shard of metal and willpower. He respected that kind of defiance. He turned off the main light, leaving only a faint lamp humming near her. As he settled on a chair by the hatch, rifle resting across his knees, he muttered to himself, Guess we're both fugitives now. Outside, the storm howled across the canyon, grinding dust against the rock walls. Inside, an uneasy peace wrapped the bunker like a heartbeat beneath the earth. Latara stirred in her sleep, whispering in her own tongue, a melody that no human language could translate. The words meant nothing to him, but the sound carried through the room like a prayer for something neither of them had ever known. Safety. Jet leaned his head back, listening until the wind outside became part of the rhythm. For the first time in years, the desert didn't sound empty. It sounded alive. Morning crept into the canyon like a thief afraid to be seen. A thin shaft of sunlight slipped through the cracks above, scattering golden dust over metal walls. Jet stirred from his chair, joints aching, rifle still balanced across his knees. The storm had died sometime during the night, leaving behind silence that felt heavier than thunder. Latara was already awake. She stood near the old terminal, tracing its surface with careful fingers. Every motion glowed faintly, her skin humming with energy that pulsed like quiet lightning. She was studying the human interface, curiosity flickering through fatigue. You shouldn't move that much yet, Jet said, rubbing sleep from his eyes. She looked back, silver pupils reflecting the weak light. Your machines hum in strange patterns, she said softly. They remember anger, he half smiled. They're relics from angry times. Her expression darkened. War never forgets, he didn't argue. Instead, he walked to the water filter and filled 2 cups. The silence between them had grown comfortable, no longer sharp with suspicion. It was the kind of silence soldiers shared before battle, the kind that said everything without speaking. Then the ground trembled. It was small at first. A ripple beneath their boots, then another, stronger, steadier. Jet's instincts flared. His hand found the rifle before thought could catch up. Instruments on the console lit one by one, sensors whining in alarm. A faint mechanical ping echoed through the bunker. Motion, he muttered. Latara's glow dimmed instantly. They have found us. How? I killed the transponders. Not enough, she whispered.
Varelon tech leaves residue.
They track my energy through dust itself. Jet cursed under his breath. He moved to the monitor, A grainy feed showed heat signatures crawling across the canyon rim. 5, maybe 6 soldiers, plus drones sweeping ahead. Each pulse of radar brought them closer. He looked back at her. "We move now," her voice wavered. "They will not stop. If they see me with you, they'll burn you with me." "Then we don't give them the chance," she opened her mouth to protest. But he was already packing ammunition, sealing oxygen tanks, throwing spare filters into his satchel. His movements were quick, precise, born of years spent running from every kind of death. She caught his arm suddenly, grip surprisingly strong. "Jet, if I go, you survive." He met her gaze. "Not leaving you for them to dissect." Her jaw tightened, anger and disbelief clashing in her voice. "Why fight for what isn't yours?" "Because maybe that's what makes it mine." Before she could answer, the first explosion shook the walls. Dust cascaded from the ceiling. The canyon roared with engines as armored carriers descended the slopes. Blue light flashed through the entry tunnel. "Down!" Jet barked. He shoved her behind a support beam just as plasma bolts tore through the upper hatch. Metal screamed. A cloud of sparks rained over them. He rolled, fired upward, 3 controlled shots. 1 drone shattered midair. 2 more swarmed through the breach, scanners pulsing red. Latara flinched, hands pressed against the wall. Energy rippled along her veins as she whispered in her native tongue. The air shimmered, bending around them like heat mirage. The next volley of plasma dispersed harmlessly against the distortion. Jet blinked. "What the hell was that?" "Defensive resonance," she gasped. "Short range. It drains me fast. Then make it count." He darted to the side terminal, hit a sequence to trigger the old defense turrets buried in the outer rock. Ancient guns awakened, coughing dust, firing erratic streams into the canyon. The noise filled every crevice with chaos. Outside, soldiers shouted orders. A voice boomed through the comm amplifiers. "By decree of Earth Defense Command, you are harboring an enemy of the state. Surrender the Virellan female or face termination." Jet's grip tightened on the rifle. He switched the comm on. "Command can kiss my dust. This sector's under my protection." Static answered, followed by laughter from the speakers. "Always the stubborn one, Jet Monroe. You never did learn when to quit." He froze. That voice, familiar, cold. "Cole?" "Major Cole now," the voice replied. "Last chance, old friend. Step aside." Latara touched Jet's arm. "He knows you." "Used to," Jet muttered. "Not anymore." He ducked behind a crate, reloaded, and peered toward the entrance. Shadows moved in tactical rhythm. The turrets wouldn't hold long.
He turned to Latara.
"You still strong enough to pulse again?" She nodded weakly. "For a moment. Good. When they breach, blind them. I'll take left flank." She closed her eyes, focusing the glow until her body shimmered like liquid light. The hum in the air grew louder, vibrating through the metal floor. The door finally gave way. Soldiers stormed inside, visors gleaming. Latara released the pulse. A burst of white radiance filled the bunker, pure and blinding. The soldiers stumbled, weapons faltering. Jet moved like muscle memory. 3 shots, precise, non-lethal, but brutal. The nearest man fell. Another lost his rifle. He swung the butt of his weapon into a third's helmet, sparks bursting on impact. "Fall back," Cole shouted from outside. "Deploy shock units." Jet dragged Latara toward the lower tunnel. "We're moving!" Her legs barely obeyed. "I can't. Energy low. Then lean on me." They stumbled down the narrow passage as another explosion ripped through the main room. Fire bloomed behind them. Heat chased their backs, forcing them deeper into the shaft. The tunnel opened into an old elevator shaft descending to the mines beneath the canyon. Jet pried open the maintenance ladder and shoved her inside. "Down fast." She gripped the rungs, trembling. "You first. Go." He barked. "I'll cover." Her eyes met his, fear mixed with something fierce. "Don't die, human." "Not planning to." She climbed down, her faint glow lighting the walls. Jet turned back just in time to see Cole enter the ruined bunker, armor scorched, eyes cold. "Walk away, Cole," Jet shouted. "You can't save her," Cole replied, leveling his weapon. "She's a contagion, Jet, they all are." Jet fired first. The bolt slammed into the metal arch beside Cole's head, showering sparks. Cole ducked, returning fire. Plasma seared past Jet's shoulder, burning fabric. He dropped behind cover, reloaded, and shot again, closer this time. Then the ceiling groaned. The explosion had weakened the supports. Latara's voice echoed faintly from below. "Jet?" He looked up, saw the cracks spreading like veins of lightning. Go, keep moving. He fired one last burst at Cole and leapt into the shaft, catching the ladder just as the floor collapsed above. Fire poured through the opening, swallowing the bunker in roaring light. They descended into darkness. The noise above faded into distant thunder. When they finally reached the bottom, Jet hit the ground hard, lungs burning. Latara knelt beside him, hands glowing faintly. You are hurt. Just singed. He forced a grin. I've had worse bar fights. She didn't understand the joke, but pressed her palm to his shoulder anyway. Warm light seeped into his skin, cooling the burn. The pain ebbed, replaced by a strange calm. How do you do that? He asked. Our energy binds to life frequencies, she said softly. We heal by sharing. He looked at her, expression unreadable. You shouldn't waste that on me. It isn't waste. Above them, muffled echoes told him Cole's men were regrouping. They didn't have long. Jet scanned the tunnel. There's an old transport line down here. If we reach the shaft's end, it leads to open desert. She nodded. Then we run again. Seems to be what we're good at. They started forward, footsteps crunching over rusted rails. Dim red lights flickered along the walls, reacting to her glow as if the old systems recognized her presence. The hum of subterranean machinery followed them, ghosts waking from decades of silence. As they neared the exit, distant engines roared above, dropships repositioning. Jet quickened pace. They'll block the canyon mouth soon. Latara's breathing grew ragged. If they catch us, I will surrender. You can't fight an army. He stopped abruptly. Listen to me. The moment I stop fighting for what's right, I'm already dead. She stared at him, voice trembling. You don't even know me. Maybe not, he said. But I know what it means to be hunted for something you didn't choose. A low rumble shook the tunnel. Part of the wall crumbled, revealing faint daylight ahead. They broke into a sprint, lungs searing, hearts pounding in unison. As they burst out into the open dunes, the sun blinded them, reflecting off endless waves of glassy sand. The air smelled of heat and freedom. Behind, the mine entrance caved in completely, sealing the way back. For a heartbeat, silence. Then from above, the drones descended again, wings slicing the light. Jet raised his rifle. Latara spread her arms, energy flaring through every vein. Together they faced the storm, man and alien, two fugitives against the entire sky. The desert had never been so bright. Morning sunlight spilled across the dunes like molten glass, painting every ridge and fire. The wind was still heavy with ash from the night before, carrying the smell of burned circuits and hot sand. Above the horizon, the drones circled like dark vultures, their rotors whining through the silence. Jet stood at the crest of a dune, rifle steady, sweat cutting pale trails down his dust-stained face. Beside him, Latara glowed faintly, each breath a flicker of silver through cracked armor. Keep your head low, he said, eyes scanning the sky. They'll sweep again any second. She nodded once, voice weak but steady. Their sensors hunt pulse signatures. I can mask yours, not mine. Then we draw them in and finish this. Her gaze turned toward him, uncertain. Finish? There are too many. Maybe, but they're machines. I'm still human. We cheat better. The faintest curve touched her mouth. Half amusement, half disbelief. Lightning flashed far above, thin blue streaks dancing across the stratosphere as the drones descended. Dust rose around them in spirals. Jet took aim, exhaled, and fired. The first shot tore through the lead machine's core. It fell smoking into the sand. Two more angled downward in perfect formation. Latara stepped forward, arms raised, palms blazing with cold light. Energy arced through the air, forming a curved barrier that shimmered like liquid glass. Plasma bursts struck and scattered harmlessly, streaking away into the dunes. Each hit dimmed her glow a little more, but she didn't stop. Jet reloaded, firing through the gaps, precise and relentless. Metal rained from the sky in burning fragments. Through the haze, a larger shape appeared. A gunship, black and angular, cresting over the ridge with engines roaring. Its side panels bore the white emblem of Earth Defense Command. Over the loudspeakers came Cole's voice, calm and cold. Stand down, Jet. You've done enough damage. Surrender her, and I'll pretend you never existed. Jet wiped grit from his eyes, mouth twisting into something between laughter and defiance. Pretend all you want, Cole. The world already forgot us. The ship's cannon turned, charging with a deep metallic growl. Latara's shield flickered under the increasing pressure. She dropped to one knee, chest heaving, light fading fast. Your barrier's dying, he shouted. I need time to renew the field, seconds only. We don't have seconds. He spun the rifle's chamber, loading the last charge, then looked at the wreckage around them. Burning drones, scattered parts, cables glinting in the sand. Inspiration struck like lightning. He tore a power core from one of the fallen machines, its surface pulsing red. Can this amplify you? He asked. Her eyes widened in understanding. Yes, but it will consume itself. And maybe me. He grinned grimly. Then let's make it count. She pressed both hands over the core. Her skin ignited with brilliant light, every vein blazing with color. The air trembled, the dunes vibrating as power coursed through her. Above them, Cole's cannon discharged, a white spear of energy cutting through the sky. The blast struck the barrier. For a heartbeat, everything froze. Then a shockwave exploded outward, swallowing the desert in sound and light. The gunship reeled, engines failing, debris scattering across the dunes. The blast ripped through every remaining drone, shredding them into molten fragments that fell like sparks of dying stars. Jet hit the ground hard, sand blasting his face. The light faded as quickly as it had come. When he lifted his head, the sky was quiet. Smoke drifted where the gunship had crashed far beyond the ridge. Latara, he shouted. She lay a few feet away, body motionless, glow almost gone. He crawled to her, turned her gently onto her back. Her eyes fluttered open, dim silver meeting the morning sun. Did we survive? Barely, she smiled faintly. Then it was worth it. He pressed a hand to the wound along her side. New burns had reopened. Stay awake. I'll fix this. There is nothing left to fix, she whispered. The cord drained my energy. My kind cannot recover from overbinding, he shook his head. No, you're not dying after all that. Her fingers brushed his wrist, cool and light. Jet, your world is cruel but beautiful. You fight not because you must, but because your heart refuses to stop. Don't make this sound like goodbye. She tried to laugh, but it came out a soft sigh. Then make it a beginning. Her hand glowed faintly, pressing against his chest. Take what's left. My energy will keep you alive long enough to run. I don't need saving. Yes, she breathed. You do. Light poured from her palm into his body, searing but gentle. His veins burned, vision swimming in silver. For a moment he saw fragments of her memory. Oceans under twin moons, cities built from crystal, faces smiling without fear. Then it was gone. She went still, her glow fading until only the mark of her touch remained. A small star-shaped scar over his heart. The wind picked up, carrying silence where her voice had been. Jet sat beside her, staring at the endless dunes. The rising sun caught the edge of her skin, reflecting light as if the universe itself refused to let her vanish completely. He stayed there until the air began to shimmer again, dropships moving in the distance. He rose slowly, shoulders straightening, expression carved from resolve. Picking up his rifle, he glanced once more at the horizon and whispered, You said beginnings, not endings. He turned and walked toward the wrecked gunship. Smoke coiled upward, marking a path through ruin. The surviving soldiers scattered when they saw him approach, unarmed, unflinching, eyes burning with something they couldn't name. Cole limped from the wreck, armor cracked, face bloodied. She's gone, Jet. You can stop pretending now. Jet's voice was low, steady. You'll tell command the target was neutralized, and you'll tell them to leave this desert alone. Cole spat blood, sneering. Why would I? Because I'm still breathing, Jet said, raising the weapon. And you know what that means. For a long second, neither moved. Then Cole's shoulders slumped. You always were too stubborn to die, right? Guess I learned that from the best. He turned away, leaving the wreck to the wind. By midday, the desert was quiet again. Heat shimmered where fire once burned. Jet reached the canyon mouth, exhaustion dragging at every step. The scar over his heart pulsed faintly, a reminder of light that would never fade. He climbed onto a ridge overlooking the ruins of the battlefield. For miles, the sand glittered faintly, particles fused by her final burst of energy forming a thin crystalline layer. It looked like a sea of glass reflecting the sky. He knelt, pressing his palm to it. The surface was warm, alive, humming with distant resonance. A whisper echoed through his mind. Not words, just feeling. Peace. He smiled, the first real smile in years. Guess you're still here. The horizon shimmered. Clouds broke open. letting the sun pour through unfiltered. The whole wasteland glowed as if reborn. Jet turned his gaze toward the north, where beyond the deserts lay the remains of human cities and the scattered colonies that still clung to life. Somewhere out there, war waited. Somewhere out there, stories of monsters called humans still echoed through alien stars. He tightened the strap of his rifle, dust swirling around his boots. "Let them come," he muttered. "They'll find something human worth fearing again." He started walking, each step deliberate, leaving footprints across the glittering sand. The wind erased them almost instantly, but the path remained burned into the horizon. One man carrying the light of an alien who had believed in mercy. Far behind him, deep beneath the dunes, faint silver light began to pulse again where Latara's body rested. The energy she had given the desert was returning to her, slow but steady, rebirthing itself through the soil and static. Her eyes flickered once, then stilled again, waiting for another dawn. As the camera of imagination pulled back, the scene widened, one vast wasteland stretching toward infinite sky, a single human figure shrinking into distance while two suns climbed above the rim of the world. The narrator's voice could almost be heard in the wind. Maybe the measure of humanity isn't in strength or conquest. Maybe it lives in the moment a soldier carries an enemy's light across the desert and calls it hope. The wind rose again, scattering dust into gold, and beneath that endless brightness, the legend began, the story of a man who defied his world, and the alien girl who taught him what mercy truly meant.